And it's a tune which in fact is a lovely ballad. We hope you like our interpretation of his Petite Fleur.
I had a skiffle group which was mainly made up of school friends, and it wasn't very good, to be honest, but we just enjoyed ourselves. Bruce was also in a skiffle group, which was a much more professional outfit, commercially orientated, earning money, that sort of stuff.
Both at school, I have to say. This is
and we met because Bruce had brought a guitar to school, a National Steel, wasn't it, Bruce? Which intrigued me tremendously. I mean, just the fact there was a guitar at school, but this metal-bodied guitar. And once we sort of expressed a mutual interest in music, and I found out that Bruce had this group, and then I was invited to join the group. They needed someone who could play sort of lead guitar and another singer for harmonies and things. So that's what happened. Then we start doing little clubs, didn't we? Working men's clubs, go as you pleasers, which is a kind of talent competition. In other words, you turn up, do what you want, 5-minute spot, and the audience votes, and if you win, you get like a £5, second gets £3 or something, third £2, whatever. And we did that sort of work, little still supposed to be at school doing homework, but in fact we weren't doing homework, we were gigging.
Hank's group was the Crescent City.
Crescent City, yes.
Crescent City skiffle group, and the group I was in was the Railroaders skiffle group. And we'd seen an advert for a talent competition in London somehow, which was at the Granada Edmonton, and the first week of April the 6th of 1958. And you and I were 16, weren't we?
Yeah.
I think a Malaysian opera singer won, and a trad band came second, and the Railroaders, I think, we came third. And funny enough, on that particular day, there was a group playing called the Velvets, and Brian Bennett was the drummer on the Velvets, and he had a great sound on his snare drum. I think he had a duster or something.
Yeah.
And we remembered him from that day. Anyway, the two other guys in the band, so we lost the competition. The two other guys in the band said we're going home, and I think they did the next day.
Yeah, they went back to
and Hank and I decided to stay in London. The Two Eyes, I guess, became famous in '56, really, with Tommy Steele. That's when I first heard of it. Tommy Steele had allegedly been discovered singing in this coffee bar, and the great story about Tommy was that he was a seaman. He was on leave on the merchant ships, and he was singing down this little coffee bar, and a guy came up to him and said, "I'm going to make you a star, son." He said, "Well, you've got 2 weeks because I'm back on the boats in 2 weeks' time." And anyway, a bit of folklore, and Tommy was, and that's when I first heard of it, and it became like a place for, I guess you'd call it wannabes now. I want to be a star.
Sort of a mecca.
And it was only like a cavern, like the Cavern, I suppose, small coffee bar, frothy coffee, the old Italian coffee, which we hadn't seen in Newcastle. I hadn't seen.
No.
It was the place. We met so many people. People would get up and jam, can I get up and do a couple of numbers with you? We were the Geordie boys, and it was there that we got to know Brian Bennett, and Tony Meehan got up with us, Jet Harris, Licorice Locking was down there. It was a mecca for would-be musos,
Yeah. We used to play down there probably 5-6 nights a week, and one night when we weren't playing, I actually was ill, I had cold or something, and Bruce was down there working, and he came back and told me that he'd seen this group down there with she's a great singer. Looks a bit like Elvis, dark, good-looking kid, sounds good, Yeah. We didn't know who it was, and it was only later on that maybe 2 months later, we found out it was Cliff. I was hanging around one day at the Two Eyes with a guy called Rick Richards, who was a country and western singer. We were just chatting, and this guy came in, a guy called John Foster, who was Cliff's first manager. So Rick said, "Why don't you have a listen to Hank?" And I was a little bit embarrassed about the whole thing. And Rick said, "Come on, let's get the guitars out." So fortunately, we had our guitars downstairs in the cellar. Went downstairs, and Rick sang a few things, a few Elvis songs and a couple of Buddy Hollies, and I played guitar. And John said, "That's great. If you want the job, you've got it." It was just a 2-week tour. So I said, "Do you need a rhythm guitarist?" He said, "Well, yeah, we do, actually." And so I recommended Bruce. And then John said, "Well, look, we're going to have a rehearsal in a couple of days' time at Cliff's parents' place. So we'll meet here at the Two Eyes on whatever day it was." And that was it. A couple of days later, we met Cliff, actually at the tailor's, just along from the Two Eyes. There was a tailor shop, and Cliff was being fitted for this famous pink jacket, which looked great. It was quite outrageous at the time. And that's when we first met.
We just had spots, didn't we?
Yeah, we all had spots. I mean, we're just an acne team,
Pimple kids.
The first rehearsals we did with Cliff were in his parents' front room in Cheshunt. There was Bruce, Cliff, Terry Smart, a school friend of Cliff's on drums, Ian Samwell, who wrote Move It and a few of other Cliff's other early hits, on bass guitar, myself, and we just practiced in the front room. I think it was only doing 5 numbers or something. I think there was an initial period of suspicion, eyeing each other up and down, who's he think he is and this sort of stuff. But we got into conversation on the bus. We found out we had similar senses of humour. We liked the Goons and other things. Bridget Bardot, Marilyn Monroe came to mind, etc., and male film stars that we perhaps admired. So we very quickly found that we had quite a lot in common, plus music, of course. That was the important thing. We were on the same wavelength musically. And that was it. And we're off. And very quickly, during that tour, we struck up a good friendship and became more like a band rather than a singer and backing musicians. And that's really the way it was for most of the time we were together.
We shared a flat in Marylebone High Street,
Yeah.
12 guineas a week. Cliff, Hank and myself, £4 each.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a big flat. It was like, I don't know, 4 beds, 3 baths, that sort of, big. And big enough to rehearse in the front room, or look as though we're rehearsing. He's got a drum kit there, hasn't he?
Yep.
Behind you.
Well, yeah.
Very central.
At least a snare drum and a hi-hat, I think, yeah.
And it must have been early 59.
And that was before Cliff got his back straightened.
Was Cliff Richard and the Drifters.
That's right.
For about 6 months, I guess?
Well, yeah, until summer of 59.
Yeah.
And what had happened was Cliff's records were being released in America. Cliff Richard and the Drifters. No, you can't do it. The American Drifters, unreasonably, here we were for 5 minutes called the Drifters. They'd only had the name for 25 years. And we came up with names like the Four Jets and things like this. And in fact, I believe there's a record put out.
There is.
In America, Jets, the Four Jets, which was us. And Jet Harris and myself were on our motor scooters in Ricelet, Lido, what do you call it?
Lido, man.
Lido?
Hey, Lido.
Where I come from, Newcastle, it's a Lido. And we were having a lager and lime, big drinkers. And Jet suddenly came, we were talking about the name, and he suddenly came up with this concept of the Shadows. And we thought, oh, that sounds good. It's quite evocative of the situation. Cliff, we're behind him, but also slightly mysterious. So we went back and told the guys, they all liked it. Cliff liked it, told our record producer, he liked it. And that was it. We used to sing, Bruce and I, in harmonies, a bit sort of in the Everly Brothers style, I suppose, and singing with Cliff. And Cliff had heard us sing a few songs. In fact, it got to the stage on his shows. Remember, the production got better to the extent that he would do
a second jacket.
Exactly. He'd do a few numbers, we'd sing a song, and he'd go off and come up with a different colour jacket on. He'd say, this is big stuff. And he said, look, you guys should be recording, writing the stuff and singing. So he spoke to Norrie and said, I think you should give them an audition.
Norrie Paramore was already a famous band leader. He was a pianist to start with, in Harry Gould's Pieces of Eight. So he was a pianist. Now, I'm trying to figure out how old Norrie would have been when we were 16, 17.
Late 30s, probably.
Yeah, on the way to
maybe
40,
early
maybe.
40s.
So he felt like your dad. He felt like a much older man.
We went to the office in Castle Street, was it? Castle Street, EMI office. Took guitars, amplifiers and a drum kit in this office. Norrie sat behind the desk. We set up.
And played.
And we
played.
played.
Can you imagine doing it now?
A few songs and sang. And he said, you've got yourselves a recording contract.
Yeah.
The good thing, as Bruce was saying about Norrie, was that I think he didn't completely understand what was going on with us. He knew it had an appeal. It was very simple, probably from his standpoint, musically. And he didn't interfere too much. We'd go away, work it out, arrange it, come back, play it. And as long as we recorded 3 sides in a session.
We sang Visions, and the lyrics actually suggest maybe we'll never meet again, but if we do, where, when, whenever it is, we will still be the young ones.
Darling, we're the young ones, and young ones shouldn't be afraid to live, love, while the flame is small. For we may not be the young ones very long. Tomorrow, why wait until tomorrow? 'Cause tomorrow sometimes never comes. So love me. There's a song to be sung, and the best time is to sing it while we're young.
Once in every lifetime.
Once in every lifetime comes a love like this. I need you and you need me. Oh my darling, can't you see that your dreams should be dreams together? And your heart shouldn't be afraid. And someday, when the years have flown, darling, then we'll teach the young ones of our own. Once in every lifetime comes a love like this. I need you, and you need me. Oh my darling, can't you see? Young dreams should be dreams together, and young hearts shouldn't be afraid. And someday, when the years have flown, darling, then we'll teach the young ones of our own.
Thank you. Thank you. That was called Bossa
Hank Marvin, the legendary guitarist from The Shadows, opened his New Zealand tour, and it's something just a little different. The tour's basically called Gypsy Jazz, and I've received a couple of texts this morning saying how absolutely amazing it was, so I thought I'd find out. Full review of the opening concert. Mark Woods is our promotions man here at Coast. You went last night, Woodsy. How was it?
It was absolutely brilliant, BK, and I've got to say that I think everyone that went along was really surprised and enjoyed what Hank and his team put on. Probably the standout alongside Hank was Nunzio Mondio, who on accordion was just unbelievable, so good, but the tunes were fantastic. There was a lot of humour in there as well, which I thought was great. Hank was full of one-liners, and there was the odd sort of comment between the band as they were playing, but very, very entertaining, and I think the crowd thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, I've had a number of texts saying, righto, where's he playing next? So the tour goes right through the country: Hamilton, Tauranga, Napier, Wellington, Glenelg.
Yeah, look, I think a few people like myself were not quite sure what we were going to get, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and I really would encourage you, if you're thinking of going, please do, because it's just a wonderful night of fantastic music and good humour.
Well, he is a music legend, that's for sure. This is just
advised to keep your seatbelt fastened when seated during the flight. Should oxygen masks drop from the side panel above your head, activate your mask by pushing.
It sounds good.
It's so far it's been brilliant. I've been outstanding. The others?
I don't know about the others.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I like to look at this back, but I've got my doubts about Nozio.
Oh, yeah.
And Robbie.
Robbie Pizarro. On guitar, Gary Taylor. Recording, Nunzio Mondia. And of course myself, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Hi, Hank Marvin here, and no, I'm not here to sell you life insurance or even this guitar. I'm here to tell you that I'm looking forward to coming to New Zealand in November to do a few concerts with my Gypsy Jazz Quartet and catching up with a few old friends. See you there.